KiwiSaver is New Zealand's main savings vehicle for accumulating funds for retirement. Today, in this slightly longer video, we'll cover how KiwiSaver works, how much you could receive at retirement, as well as how to select the right fund and provider. Hi, I'm Jim Smith, Senior Financial Planner here at Pacific Wealth. We specialise in helping new migrants and returning Kiwis navigate the intricacies of cross-border financial planning to help you make the most of your new life in New Zealand. Today we're taking a deeper dive into KiwiSaver. We'll cover how it works, how much you could receive at retirement, as well as how to select the right fund and KiwiSaver provider. That's a lot to cover, so let's jump right in. In this first section, we're going to canter through all the main KiwiSaver rules, including the changes introduced in the 2025 budget. If you're new to KiwiSaver, you might want to pause or rewind the video if you need to take a second look. KiwiSaver is available to all New Zealand citizens and residents. Non-residents, though, can't join. Employees are automatically enrolled when starting a new job, but can opt out within the first 8 weeks. Self-employed individuals and non-workers are not automatically enrolled, but can join by contacting a KiwiSaver provider directly. New Zealand's KiwiSaver operates under a savings system that can be thought of as being tax exempt, whereby under this system, contributions are paid out of your net income and there is no tax relief on contributions. Once invested, the funds are subject to tax on growth, but when you're drawing funds, any distributions are exempt from tax in New Zealand as the funds are considered as being tax paid already. Employees can contribute a chosen percentage of their salary or wages, being 3, 4, 6, 8 or 10% of their pay. Employers are required to pay a minimum of 3% unless the employee is on a contributions holiday or opts out. Employer contributions are subject to something called employer superannuation contribution tax, which means that depending upon your earnings, tax at between 10.5% to 39% will be deducted from the employer contributions. As announced in the 2025 budget, the minimum employee and employer contribution rates are increasing from 3 to 3.5% from 1st of April 2026 and 3.5% to 4% from 1st of April 2028. For the 12-month period ending 30th of June 2025, the government will contribute 50 cents for every $1 contributed up to a maximum of $521 for members aged 18 to 65. This is referred to as the member tax credit. From 1st of July 2025, the maximum government contribution is being reduced to $260. Members aged 16 to 17 will be eligible for this contribution for the first time, but those earning more than $180,000 will no longer receive the government contribution. Savings can be drawn at any time after a member reaches the age of eligibility for New Zealand superannuation, which is currently 65. First home buyers can withdraw their KiwiSavers to put towards their first home, but must leave a minimum $1,000 in their account. Withdrawals are also allowed in a limited number of other situations, such as if a member suffers significant financial hardship, is seriously ill, or is permanently disabled. The rules for KiwiSaver are set by the government, but is run by the private sector such as banks and other investment firms. There's a wide range of funds to choose from, including conservative, balanced, growth and aggressive funds, as well as many other options. Members who don't choose a fund are automatically placed in a provider's default fund. To illustrate what income your KiwiSaver could produce at retirement, we're going to build a hypothetical example for Tracy. To do this, we have to make a number of assumptions. In this example, we assume that Tracy starts work at age 20 in April 2025. She has a salary of $60,000 per annum, joins KiwiSaver and gains 3% employer contribution, the government tax credit $260 per annum and pays 3% of her pay. The employee and employer contributions increase to 3.5% in April 2026 and then 4% in April 2028 in line with the 2025 budget changes. After 10 years, she withdraws $50,000 at the age of 30 to help with a deposit on her first home, which spends most of her retirement fund. However, she continues saving for the next 35 years. What do you think her fund will be worth at 65? Well, using the regulator's preferred rate of return for an aggressive KiwiSaver fund of 5.5% per annum after tax and fees, her fund will have grown to just over $1 million New Zealand dollars by age 65. This amount is in nominal terms, so before adjusting for inflation. In real terms, and adjusting for inflation at 2% per annum, the fund will be worth around $430,000, which isn't quite as impressive, but still a very meaningful amount of money. If we then assume she takes a 5% non-increasing withdrawal rate at 65, which should be sustainable in most circumstances for the remainder of her retirement, she'll be able to produce $21,000 per annum in retirement income. This income will be paid in addition to New Zealand Super, assuming she meets the residency requirements. If Tracy is single and living alone, her New Zealand Super will be around $28,000 per annum, and therefore her total retirement income will be worth around $49,000 per annum. In this example, New Zealand Super will make up around 57% of her total retirement income, with KiwiSaver making up the other 43%. Thus, KiwiSaver might not provide Tracy with the life of Riley, but could contribute a decent amount of income to her final total. If she instead delays retirement until age 70, her fund will have grown to close to 1.5 million New Zealand dollars in nominal terms from those 5 more years of investment returns and contributions. After adjusting this for inflation, this is around $552,000 in real terms, from which she will be able to take $33,000 per annum in retirement income, assuming a slightly higher 6% non-increasing withdrawal rate from age 70. This takes her total income to a healthy $61,000 net per annum, incorporating New Zealand Super. Like most long-term savings, the impact of compounding the returns year after year is quite striking. In the final example, which has a 50-year time horizon, by the time Tracy reaches the age of 70, she will have a fund of 1.5 million in nominal terms. But at the halfway point, after 25 years of saving, her fund is worth only 198,000 New Zealand dollars. In fact, 30% of the total ending fund value comes in the last 5 years between the ages of 65 and 70. Depending on which KiwiSaver scheme you select, you will most likely have a range of choices from low-risk conservative funds to high-risk aggressive funds. The risk level is largely determined by the allocation to growth and defensive assets, which is shown in the portfolio allocation column of this table. In most KiwiSaver funds, growth assets will be shares in listed companies, whereas defensive assets are normally considered as cash and fixed interest investments. Growth assets are likely to experience more ups and downs in value, but have a higher expected return in the long term. Defensive assets, on the other hand, tend to be more stable and help to balance out the risk associated with growth assets. Within a KiwiSaver, once you have chosen your fund type and risk level, the fund manager is likely to make the rest of the investment choices. You should select a fund based on your specific goals, investment preferences, willingness to take risk, and time horizon. Determining your risk level is therefore an important but individual choice. However, due to KiwiSaver's particular features, it's not a one-time set-and-forget decision. This chart provides an example of how your fund choice could evolve over time. If you start saving in your teens or early 20s, you might be happy with a growth fund that has around 80% invested in equities. But as you approach the date you want to withdraw your KiwiSaver for a first home deposit, you should consider reducing the risk so that the value is a lot more stable. But after the first home deposit has been withdrawn, the risk level can be ramped up, given the long-term time horizon. Then, as retirement approaches, the risk level can be tapered off to reduce the volatility and the possibility of a large fall in value. Please note that this example is just a guide. The right risk level for you will depend upon your specific goals, the risk level you are prepared to accept, your preferences and time horizon. At the time of producing this video in 2025, there are around 30 different KiwiSaver providers to choose from and numerous different fund options. To help work through all these choices, I generally categorise KiwiSaver schemes into one of 3 different categories. These are low-cost KiwiSaver providers, those from banks and other large financial institutions, and other specialist KiwiSaver providers. The group of low-cost KiwiSaver providers includes the likes of Kernel Wealth and Simplicity, where the total fees for investment are around 0.25% per annum. We can also put the BNZ KiwiSaver into this group, as their fees are the lowest of the major banks, with a fee of 0.45% per annum for their balance and growth funds. The benefit of a low-cost provider is that less of your funds are deducted to meet the ongoing charges and more invested for long-term growth. Kernel, Simplicity and BNZ offer a range of diversified funds that follow a passive investment strategy and aim to track various market indices. Generally, there is no provision for personalised financial advice within these fee structures. Many banks and large financial institutions have their own KiwiSaver schemes, and because of their reach and number of customers, the bulk of KiwiSaver funds are invested in this group. This includes the likes of ANZ, ASB, Westpac, and financial institutions such as Fisher Funds and Milford. The charges for investing are typically around 0.6 to 1.2% per annum, but can be higher depending upon the underlying fund selected. You'll most likely have access to a range of different fund options. In most cases, you will not be offered personalised advice, but some phone-based help or assistance may be available. There are a range of other specialist KiwiSaver providers available. Invest Now uses a platform and provides access to a range of funds from different fund managers, and the fees vary by fund manager. Pathfinder focuses on sustainable investing. It charges 1.3% per annum for its growth fund, plus there is a $27 per annum membership fee. The KiwiSaver scheme is another specialist option. It provides access to a wide range of individual stocks and bonds, as well as funds from various fund managers. KiwiSaver scheme also includes the provision for financial advice, but is only available through approved financial advisors. Overall, the fund type you select, such as aggressive, growth, balanced or conservative, is likely to have a far greater bearing on what returns you receive than which KiwiSaver scheme you select. You should therefore focus on joining KiwiSaver and getting your fund selection right based upon your situation and goals. In the long term, it's very hard to know which KiwiSaver fund will produce the best returns without the benefit of hindsight. It's also a well-known fact in fund selection that the funds that perform well in one year will not necessarily be the ones that perform the best in the next. This means that while selecting the best performing fund from the previous few years might sound like a sensible strategy, there is very little to suggest that your fund will continue to outperform in the longer term. Because of this, it is generally to focus on what you can control, such as maximise the available contributions and pay at least the minimum amount to get the maximum contribution from your employer and the government. Make sure you have the right amount of growth assets for your age and stage of life and the level of risk that you're prepared to accept. Favour KiwiSaver providers that have low fees. Whilst you cannot rely on past performance records to predict future returns, focusing on low fees does ensure that less is deducted from your funds and more is available for investment. You should also consider what other services you require. Do you want access to other services such as financial advice, or maybe you want to pursue a more sustainable investment option? In this video, I hope we've given you an understanding of KiwiSaver, including how it works, how much you could receive at retirement, as well as how to go about selecting the right fund and KiwiSaver provider. If you're interested to learn more about financial and retirement planning issues that international migrants need to know when moving to New Zealand, we've also created other videos that you can explore on our YouTube channel. You can also visit our website, www.pacificwealth.co.nz, which has other information and articles, and where you can book a free initial consultation. Thank you for watching, and if you found the content helpful, please drop us a like, comment, and consider subscribing.